so on and so forth, so I've asked Ed to give us an update on the whys and wherefores. Take it, Ed.
Okay. Good evening. Ed Gentile, Director of Public Works. There you go. Thank you for having me here tonight.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure. Just going to ask, I did a quick overview on this too at the Board of Selectmen meeting. I want to know if anyone had seen it first, so I don't.
I believe I did.
I saw bits and parts.
Okay. Monica was good enough, and I worked with her on a short paragraph. I'd like to just read it through to give you some good information, and then I've answered some of your stuff off the agenda. Hopefully this will kind of fill in the blanks for you why we took a look at postponing until April. Most of our budgets include $1 million or more in capital funds to pave over 6 miles of roads in the town of Darien this coming year, or actually it should have been done this past month. Paving typically done in the summer to avoid disruption to schools, when the weather is most predictable, and when our residents are on vacation. This year, as a result of soaring energy prices during the second quarter and a general disruption in the availability of contractors in their labor pool, the pricing for paving the Darien Wood contract ad soared to over 25% higher, which should reduce the mileage that we could pave by approximately 25% or greater. Our staff saw this as a temporary spike for which the industry expected would subside, and it has, but not in time to get the paving completed in August. In order not to disrupt our schools, we plan to reschedule some of the paving to be done over the spring break in April, weather permitting. The balance to be combined with next summer's paving, which should and will give us better pricing given the large additional mileage. Our Public Works Department regularly monitors our roads, makes repairs as necessary, and always looks to be financially prudent with our community tax dollars. As always the case, if a resident sees dangerous parts of the roadway need repair, they should get and send a message through our website or contact the Public Works office directly. That was Monica's statement, and I helped her with that. I wanted to give her some good information to get out to the public. So, in a nutshell, we all saw what happened to oil prices. It started to hit around February, March, April. We just watched it go up, and I watched it all summer, and I didn't take this decision lightly. I wanted to make sure that we could get the best bang for our buck, and it happened to spike its highest in July, when I would normally bid it. And I did normally bid it. I wanted to see what kind of prices I'd get back. So in doing so, we had budgeted at a price range of about $105 per ton of asphalt to be put down. Our bids came in at $135 per ton, and we're doing over 12,000 tons. So multiply that in your head quickly. That's my first gap, right, that we're going to lose. Milling prices went from $2.50 per square yard to over $4. We're doing close to, I think, 12,000 or 10,000 square yards of that. Add that number in, and then tack coat, which I normally get for a penny per square yard. It's nominal. They don't even charge me. Went up to $5 a square yard.
Wow.
So those are the three numbers I saw. And I think my decision at that time had been made. It was just to sit down with the first selectman and the town administrator and let her understand and let Kate understand that, this is not something I'm putting off and hoping that the prices get better. I'm feeling pretty confident they will. Gas prices have gone down. I think we've seen that over the last couple weeks, maybe into months. Diesel prices are coming down also. That's what's driving some of the milling costs and tackle, things that don't normally change on me. We all know what's happening with oil prices, and that's driving the cost per ton of the asphalt price.
Can you just remind me what milling is again? I think I know what it is, but is that the grinding before you put the...
That's correct. We mill about 2 inches off the road. We take those millings, we ship them away, we sweep it up. It looks a little rough for a while, manholes are sticking up.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
milling process.
All right, cool.
Then we come back and we put the
And
asphalt.
then tactile?
Yeah, that goes down just before we pave. Generally, you hear about it when a car goes through it and gets on the side of there. Those are usually the conversations I get from the residents of how they went through it and on the side of their car. We do compensate for them. They're going to get cleaned off. So that's what the tack coat is. It's kind of the glue. So I just want to give you a little bit of petroleum-based asphalt pricing over the last 2 years. So in August of 2020, the asphalt price per liquid ton was $430.
And that compares to the 105 you had before?
No, liquid asphalt is the liquid that they use to make the asphalt.
I'm just
Yeah,
saying, you
so-
gave a number of 105 versus
105
135.
is the processed asphalt I get from the plant to put on the ground. Liquid asphalt is what drives the price of that asphalt,
Okay.
okay?
It's part of the recipe
Yeah, there you go, that's a good way to
of
put it.
making asphalt.
So that's in 2020, August. August of 2021, $497 per liquid ton. Shortly thereafter, January of 2022, 512. See the escalation starting now. And it wasn't that much, right? 497, 512. August, this past August, $732. Over $220 per liquid ton jump in less than 5 months. That's August 1st. August 30th, where we sit right now, it's down to $687. So I'm seeing the decline already. I'm seeing the decline in fuel prices, I'm seeing the decline in liquid asphalt. I'm gonna rebid this come January so that I have a really good price. Hopefully January is generally the lowest month, no one pays, the prices are down, oil prices seem to hopefully have continued to drop, maybe even further, and I'll explain what happens then. But January is a good time to bid it for me if I wanna pave in April. We have a de-escalator and an escalator language in our contract. So if it continues to drop, the liquid asphalt price continues to drop, for every $5 I get 5 cents off, or 25 cents off, so it's a 5% reduction. So it'll continue to drop and I will still benefit from the contract. Doesn't matter when I bid it. But hopefully oil, diesel prices will drop. These contractors will bid competitively because they'll want that early season work. A lot of people like us wait till the summer or late in the fall when the funds are available. So this is an opportunity also to benefit there. So I thought this was a good decision that was made to hold off in doing that.
So question, if we have that de-escalator clause in the contract, other than scheduling the work, right, it's basically, I'll call it most favored nation, right? You're getting the lowest price available from the time you bid to the time you do the work. Why not go ahead and schedule the work now? Because even if prices are ridiculously high now, to your point, we're only paying market price at the time we do the work.
What I don't get the benefit from is the savings in milling and the trucking costs for asphalt that he puts in the 135, that's in there now. So all I'll see is the savings from the decline in liquid asphalt. So I want to capture as many benefits as I can, and rebidding in January, which is the reason I made the contract that I bid until December 31st. I cut it off, leaving me an option to extend it if I got a good price. I didn't get a good price. I'm going to rebid this in January.
But also, it's not dollar for dollar reduction, it's only a percentage reduction.
Correct.
Right, so.
Correct. You only get a quite, but again, I don't get the diesel cost savings. I don't get the labor cost savings and things like that.
I have a question. So if you're saying January is generally a good time, is this something going forward that we should think about doing during the paving during April break?
I will answer that in May, after we do this, because I've found, and you know, in working for Jamie Stevenson as long as I have, she asked me to, and I made the commitment to do it while the disturbance to schools and residents was a minimum. And I think my predecessor did the same thing, so I kept doing that. But let's see how I do in April. All eyes are going to be on me. I understand that part. I also understand the roads are going to deteriorate in some areas where we're going to need help. I've made a commitment to keep those roads up during the wintertime. I do have to plow them, so I do need to maintain them still until we pave again.
Are there can you estimate any of the additional costs that might go with maintaining those roads during the winter?
I would consider them pothole repairs, if you will. I buy a ton of asphalt for $250. I usually pick up the potholing about two loads or 2 tons, if you will.
Okay.
It's not expensive to do. We do have the labor. We use our in-house labor. We do pick it up ourselves. So The maintenance cost to extend it is minimal.
And how long, once you start the paving, how long does it take?
This amount of roadway is probably gonna take us about 18 days to do.
So the April break is 1 week.
Correct. I will focus that 1 week in areas where I believe I'm gonna impact schools or major arteries to get people to and from schools or to and from the railroad stations. So I will work with the contractor to schedule it appropriately. But that week, I have the roadway right in front of the Middlesex Middle School. I need to do that while there's no one there. If we've all
That's
seen the
holiday.
traffic,
There's so much traffic on that
Yeah.
road.
there's no other way for me to do it, so that was my only opening, was that April. We will make sure we mill and pave that road within that time frame.
So we had, I understand this is probably a school issue and not a town issue. I work at the middle school, and for reasons that remain inexplicable, they paved it, the parking lot and the bus loop last week, and finished it on Sunday. And there are no lines in the parking lot. We're relieved that it was finished, but I don't understand why that happened. And I would hope that that doesn't happen with the paving in front of the building as well.
I have no intention on working on the weekends. I intend on making sure that that school route, just specifically that road, is what I'm looking at and why we picked the week that we picked.
Okay.
And if I may generally state though, with the changing costs, I think we had originally planned for 6.4 miles,
Correct.
but I don't see, even with prices starting to soften, I don't see that we're gonna get back to 6.4 miles for what we budgeted. What do you think?
No, I'm hoping to get back half. I think that would be a target for what I'm looking at. So we're down to 4.9. I'm hoping that I get maybe 3/4 of a mile back. I used to spend $250,000 per mile. This new pricing is $350,000 per mile.
Yeah,
So it's, it's a lot of money
yeah.
to do this work, but I feel that if we're going to do the work, one, we should do it right, and number two, I should get is best bang for my buck going forward with the money that I have and been given by the boards and the RTM.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but we try to maintain, I think it's referred to as like a 20-year plan, so that we get to every road, one way or another, over the course of 20 years. So this is going to affect the plan. It's going to have an impact on future budgets, I would venture to say, in order to keep up with that plan. Is that a fair statement on my part?
It's fair. The only thing that's not out there for you to see is the paving schedule for the next 5 years. For some reason, I believe my predecessor had gotten ahead of himself, because next year's schedule looked like 2.7 miles, 3.8, 3.2. So for some reason, he was below the 4 limit. He may have tried different processes out there. That does happen at times. But what I was able to do is I was going to get caught up next year.
Yeah.
It just means I'll have to get caught up the following year. And then we all do all the water and gas mains that are out there, all those trenches. Those roads get done too. The water company's been good. They've been trying to hit us on the same cycle as the 20-year cycle for the road. You get close, some roads they do get those, a 10 or a 12-year cycle, and they end up paying a little bit more to do the restoration. But we do curb to curb here.
So when we have major projects, I'm thinking of the one on Heights Road by the Burbank train station, and, they tore that up today to do some. Is it part of the project to fix the road after, or do they just fix the trench that they do?
I approached the owner of the property, Federal, and their construction manager, and I gave them an estimate, if you will, of the paving contribution that they'll need to make the road whole. So it was whatever the restrictions on the permit said, you have to pay half the road, you have to pave a lane, whatever it was. I applied it to all their work out there, and I said, this is what you need to contribute to the town. I will take your money and I will institute the paving of this roadway on our cycle, on our schedule.
So we do it, we just get a contribution from the project.
Same thing with the gas company, same thing with the water company.
Okay.
It kind of gives me a little consistency in making sure the work's getting done right, and our bid seems to be better than what the utility companies are getting from out there at this time.
2 quick questions. If you're doing the work that you would have done this summer in April, does that mean you're gonna do another tranche in next July, August?
Correct.
And then to the, April being what it is, you know, it can be really hot, we can have blizzard. What is, I assume you have a weather out on the contract if paving's not feasible.
There's no guarantee that they get any of the work done. There's no, if you don't do it this, I have to pay them because they scheduled. It's basically a unit price for me to use them to do paving.
Okay.
So I
So
hope it
if
doesn't
you're
snow.
digging out from a foot of snow, then you guys are doing digging, they're not doing paving.
That's correct, and I may have to shift the paving away from the schools until the summertime to do that. If Mother Nature doesn't play well with us, I will do what I can away from the schools, and then the plan would be then we have to do it in July
So you have
when
a
the
couple
schools
of-
aren't in session.
You have a couple of fallback positions in case. the weather's not
I
friendly.
have a plan B and C, I prefer not to use them, but
I expect nothing less, Ed, but. Thank you.
And anybody else with a question on the committee? All right, I'd like to recognize Jack Davis with a question.
It's more of a statement.
Statement. Okay.
About 5 years ago, we changed how we accounted for paving roads, and it may have been 6 or 7, but Ed may recall. Paving roads used to be an expense, so what wasn't expended went back to the general fund. About 5 years ago, Kate, Jen, and parties that all discussed this, including F&B, decided it was going to be a capital expense. Because it's a capital expense, the $1 million or so that we approved in last year's budget stays in our reserve fund for capital non-recurring expenditures until it is used. Had it not been done there, it would have returned to the general fund, and for the next budget year, we would have had to do $2 million. Because this is there, it's just a standing account, so there's no worries about what goes on for at least the finances that we have already approved.
Approved.
So that's an important concept to know.
It-
We may do less, but the money's good for 23, fiscal year 23 as well.
it'll roll over the fiscal year.
Yeah.
And Jack, I'm sorry, I'm gonna steal a little thunder, but I begged Kate and Jen to do that. It
I'm
was so hard
happy you did.
to finish and spend every little dollar by June 30th. And I'd had some experience in another area where they had it as a capital, and they were gracious enough to look into it and nice enough to change it for me, and it's actually worked out better, and it's actually gonna help this situation too, so
Yeah.
it's a better, and F&B
I will
is
say,
good about
as
it.
soon as they called us up in F&B and said, we want to do this, my response was, it was about time.
All right, if there are no further questions, thank you, Ed, appreciate the update.
Thanks, Ed.
And,
Actually, Ed, can I
we
ask
wish you
about
all the
one other
best and good
question
luck.
or one other topic? Do you know what the status is of West and Norotan?
They're getting started.
Yeah, they delivered the drainage structures last week. Mark out, they're supposed to do some saw cutting this week and start the installation next, so I asked them to wait off of this week because of school starting and people getting better and back into their routines. But next week, we're gonna be out there working. I just wanna get that done. I think it's gonna be a great project, but I've been waiting a long time for this.
Right, no, I know.
So many
I know.
folks- so many folks
Everybody
have
does.
too. So,
So what would you guesstimate the time frame once they do get started? Subject to, of course, the weather, we understand.
since I thought they would be starting 2 or 3 months ago, I think I'm a bad
You're-
person to
yeah.
gauge that.
So you're afraid to say anything?
But I will push it again. The traffic equipment is the hardest stuff to get right now. Like everything else, you know, you could get 80%, but then you have to wait for the remainder portion to finish the project. So we'll get the construction done, curbing, sidewalks, everything in, but the changeover to the traffic lights may take a little while.
One last question for you. The asphalt situation, does that impact the sidewalk work that was also budgeted?
We renegotiated it just before the price, or just after the prices started to escalate, but they didn't reach peak. So we're in a better position right now for asphalt sidewalks than we would have been if we used the price in June.
So that the sidewalk extensions that were in the budget are
Are
gonna,
still functional and still on my target.
Okay.
As a target to complete. think that Nearwood is my first asphalt one I have to do. So that's still on the schedule.
A lot of the sidewalks are cement, so it wouldn't be impacted.
I'd say 75 to 80% of them are concrete.
Okay.
Anything else for Ed? No? Okay, then, thank you, Ed. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Stick around for your swap shop.
Yes. So, we,
But I may sit back there though.
I'm gonna take all the arrows.
Go to silence.
I'll sit right here.
No, you, that's all right.
we have two special guests. Dan Dolcetti, did I say that correctly?
Yes.
He was one of the original people on staff that started the swap shop, as I understand it. Okay, so he'll be very knowledgeable and is still involved with the operation to this day. Okay, and then we have Kathleen Finnegan,
Correct.
and she's here in the absence of Carolyn Bain. Kathleen, you're welcome to join us here at
Sure.
the table if you want.
Okay.
You know,
As you,
we'll move a
need
little,
a rescue, or can I just come here?
make some room for you to squeeze in there. I'd just like to say that, you know, the swap shop has been a success for the town, facilitating reduction of waste and related party fees and a place for residents to share and exchange their out-of-use home items. We want this swap shop to thrive, continue as an asset of the town. And we believe, however, that it is appropriate to periodically reflect and exchange ideas on the operation, policies, and procedures of the swap shop. Thusly, Public Works Committee is calling for this meeting to serve as an opportunity on a go-forward basis to discuss and think about the continued success of the swap shop. All right, so I'd like to start by just bringing out some aspects that are very positive that the swap shop has contributed to the town. You know, of course, the one that's everybody kind of talks about is, you know, one person's trash is another person's treasure, and so that's, I think, a large part of the basis of the swap shop, that people bring things in that they just have no use for anymore, leave it off, and of course, hopefully some other resident in town is going to come in and say, I could use that, and take it out. And in line with that, you know, another saying, if you will, with tying with that is you give something and then you get something. I also have to believe that it's partly a social event. You know, you know, just like at the transfer station, you know,
Social event?
people bump into each other. Hey, how are you?
Right.
And of course, helps to reduce the trash. And it also is, I think, an item that sustainable CT. It's part of our things that we list on the certification with sustainable CT. Is that correct?
Yes, and I can, at some point, fill you in a little on that.
Well, this would be a good time if you're
Start?
inclined to
Well,
do
it's
so.
Dan's baby, so I don't know.
Well, before we begin,
Yeah.
the way we started, there were four of us at the Sugar Bowl. We started at the Sugar Bowl. There was David Genovese, Reese Hutchinson, myself, Dot Kelly, and Susan Cameron. You know, and all of us grew up in town except for Dot Kelly. And we decided that, you know, when we were growing up, we'd be able to go to the dump and pick. And all of a sudden, the insurance came in and we couldn't do it any longer. And also, there's all kinds of trash every year, once a year, out, you know, out on our stoops and lawns, and people running around trying to get it. So we decided that we would probably need a swap shop. So we went to a bond client, and she said, "Oh, sure, you can do it, Dan and everyone else, but someone has to manage it and run it." And of course, David Genovese couldn't do it. The other three were working. I was the only one retired. So guess what?
You volunteered.
Here I am. So that's how I got the job. But before we begin, I think one of the questions is, do we have people at the swap shop that go online and sell? And yes, we do. And there are about probably 3 or 4 people that do that. And they're all retired, and they wanted me to tell all of you that they need the income because they are retired, they're on fixed incomes. And the thought process is that, you know, they go and they pick put it on eBay and they make a lot of money. Well, that's not really the case. And the stuff that they get and refurbish and put on eBay, we wouldn't put in our living rooms. So I just wanted to give you a before and after of what they do, so you have a clear idea of what goes on. It's not a matter of just taking stuff and, you know, cleaning it up and putting it on eBay and making a fortune. That's not the case. And by the way, I talked to the television people here, and they could put this online so everyone can take a look at that. Number two, Jack Davis back there, I invited him because he's an honorary member of the volunteers.
Okay.
He comes and he cleans, he works with us, so he has an intimate knowledge. So if I say something, Jack, that's not correct, you know, let everybody know.
I won't let them know.
Now, the goal is to get rid of stuff at the end of the day. We don't have room to store it. You know, we're not a Home Depot where you can put stuff on the shelf and wait for a customer. It doesn't work that way. So our goal is to get as much stuff out as we can. And what I want the volunteers to do is to do that. And when you see sometimes volunteers putting stuff away, or they really don't need the stuff themselves because they're not putting it in their homes. They're retired. You know, 4 of them grew up in town. The other 3 are here over 30 years. They have small houses. They don't need the stuff. But as you said, it's their country club. You know, they have a lot of people in town. They get there for their therapy. They love the people they're working with. We have parties. I take them out for Christmas, and you know, it's a nice little camaraderie that they're doing there. And they do have their own charities, and they have lists of people in town that want stuff. I have lists of people that want stuff. Carolyn is on my list. You know, her son right now needs a desk, you know, for school. When it comes in, I'm going to give it to her. A month ago, I got a call from my daughter-in-law who works at St. Thomas More. Dad, I want 3 tricycles. I give her 3 tricycles. Or, you know, so I have lists of people. So when you see some of the volunteers taking stuff, it's really not for them. And we also have, if you've heard the podcast, we have people that come in that we know that do charity work, where if they come in on a Thursday, I know they're coming in, I'll keep toys aside for them, and they take them down to Stanford. So there's a lot of different things that are going on to get rid of this stuff, okay? And that's the key to it, because at the end of the day, we have to get rid of most of it. We cannot keep it. So that's the goal at that point in time. The other situation is we're talking about people who walk in. Now, believe it or not, 95% of the people that walk up to the swap shop have permits. Interesting, huh? They're from BMW, from Nielsen's Florist, from Dave Campbell's organization on that end. We have the workers that come in that have permits, and the drivers come up. They park over in the corner, right? They park over in the corner, over where the hauler is, and they walk on up. So 90% of the people you see have permits coming in. The other 5%, and I did a little analysis, so I want to take you through it. When Ralph called me on August 2nd, I said, let me just go through who comes in from across the street. August 2nd, we had Barbara come in. Now, Barbara's a volunteer. Now, why is she parking across the street? Because her husband's also a volunteer, and he only has pass for one person. So she parks across the street, comes over. That was the only person that came from across the street on August 2nd. August 3rd, we had Sophia, wonderful woman. 50% of the time she comes in with a pass because she works in town with a family, and she uses a family car. And the other 50%, when she's not working, parks across the street, comes walking over. Roland came. Now, Roland comes in every once in a while. Roland manages the Royal Flush Company. You know, there are 50 Royal Flushes in Darien. And of course, he manages it. He goes around town during the day, and he sees that they're clean. And then he comes to the swap shop because some of the people told him, Roland, why don't you go take a look, see what's going on. That was it for the 3rd. On the 4th, Sophia drives in with her car. So she didn't have to park across the street. Paula, who works in town, comes in. She's one of the domestics in town. Sumari, who is a computer geek, who lives in Stanford, comes in, takes all the computer parts, puts them together, and gives them free to the kids in Stanford who can't afford computers or whatever. Now, how did he find out? Person to person told him, hey, Sumari, why don't you go to the swap shop? You know, you're doing a good deed, go on over. And then there was another family that came in whose father is a landscaper, and they know, about the swap shop because of their dad who comes in with a permit, and they come walking in. That's the 4th. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just want you to understand that people that come in have some type of, with Darien, they know someone or something. On the 5th, I just give you the 5th, John walks in. Now, John lives in town. He has a permit. He has a big truck. So he decides he wants to park across the street. So he walks in. He doesn't want to park in. They only have 13 spaces. So John walks in. Mary walks in. Mary is the sister of someone who lives in town. 50% of the time she comes with her sister. 50% of the time she across the street. Okay? And Helen walks in. She's a domestic in town. So people who are walking from across the street have some type of relationship with someone in Darien. So it's not that, we have flooded with people coming in from across the street. And the people who, 95% of them, do have permits that are coming across on that end. Have I answered a lot of your questions? No?
Dan,
Yes.
because I don't know that you said the dates, but I don't know what day of the week it was. Is Saturday
August
on
5th
there?
was a Monday,
Okay.
a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday. I even have a Saturday.
I'm
here.
just curious about a Saturday because that seems to be
Yeah,
a
the
lot
Saturday
of
is
talk
the
in
same
town.
thing, and we do, on the Saturday, we do have some people that come in and have no relationship to Darien.
Okay.
That's on a Saturday, yes. We may have 4 or 5 people that do come in.
We only started to reopen on Saturday, what, 8 weeks ago?
Recently.
Yes.
maybe?
Yeah.
Month or so ago.
No, it was COVID, it was volunteer, just stepping back with the only way the swap shop is open is if people that are members of this community are willing to spend their time at the facility directing people to where to put things, things that we do not take, there are certain things we do not take, and I think an email that Carolyn sent to all of you today, which you won't read through, but items not accepted, no TVs, put them in e-ways, no mattresses. Someone's taking a mattress out of their car, they're going to say, please go somewhere else. So the hours are really driven by what we can do for volunteers, and we brought them back through COVID, inched them to weekdays, and the town was really asking the advisory committee and Ed and Dan to extend to Saturdays. And so we've done that on a shorter number of hours than had been in the past, when we think that it does not impact the traffic to the degree that there are going to be people backing out onto the main road to get into anywhere, the swap shop, or it's like on a leaf Saturday afternoon or something like that.
The other thing is we don't have set hours, believe it or not, because the public knows what to do.
Yeah.
They know, as you probably all know, you come in, you know what to do, right?
Yeah.
So we have to have one person that opens up, and sometimes you won't see anybody there. And it works. It works. Like somebody said, it's like a beehive. People understand what has to be done, and they come and go. And most of the time, the volunteers will say, look, I can't make it tomorrow at 2 o'clock, you're going to be here. Because on Saturdays, I'm not there till 10 o'clock. During the week, I'm not there till about 9:30, 10, 11. I come and go. So it's very flexible, and that's the way it works. Because if we had hours, we wouldn't get volunteers. It's very difficult to even find people right now for paying jobs.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
So you really have to, people have to love it, and the people enjoy it there. They have their friends. It's
of course.
a social club.
It's a social club,
You
and
know,
I think to the degree
He's over
that
there all the time, over there in the corner.
the
right?
hours are not extended more than they are, is because we are reliant. And I mean, we had a conversation or two in committee meetings about, well, if we're gonna open up more hours or Saturday, do we have to hire someone? No, there's, you know, but all those kinds of things. So we work it on really the goodwill of a number of people in this community who are doing this to help the town. And I think I want to bring it back to where I come in, serving on this committee, is when it was first discussed, when you were talking about 2009, the motivated people, as Carolyn put it in her swap shop description, is the plan was to reduce municipal solid waste. And so if we take this conversation anywhere beyond it, it's all nice to know, it's all what actually happens. But the point of the program was we were giving up the curbside pickup, and the cost of municipal solid waste is a significant number to the taxpayers of Darien. So if we could reduce the waste and introduce sustainability, reduce, reuse, recycle, this is a part of that whole concept. So the swap shop, you know, came into being. And I don't know, I mean, you may see all these things, but and I took a number from the application that Carolyn had just posted with the transfer station logs. You know, the solid waste is 314 to 544, I assume that's tons, a month. We pay by the ton or the 1,000 pounds. And the numbers being anywhere between 300 and 500 on average tons per month that we pay to have hauled away. Anything that does not go into that bin, into that hopper, is a savings to the community of Darien. And still some things get moved from the swap shop to the hopper because we don't have enough room, unless Ed, we keep asking Ed for a bigger facility, and he keeps laughing at us in committee meetings.
No.
We do, we have tried. Can we have a bigger place? And we have a furniture outlet out there, whatever. So within the people that live in the community, that volunteer at the community, that bring their stuff, and the people that take stuff, 95% of which live in Darien or work in Darien, are doing a service to all of us as taxpayers. And I think that's the bottom line with where this is and what you want to do going forward, or what ideas you have. I mean, those are all wonderful conversations.
We're open to any type of suggestions. There's a great forum to do that. Also, I'll impress upon the public, try to bring your stuff in early, you know, from like 8 to 10, so we can get it out and get it through. When it comes in at 11, 11:30, 12 o'clock, it's very difficult to get rid of stuff.
And with the success of this, have other towns come?
Oh, yes.
I would like to
ask for a blueprint.
Yes, Stanford has started it, Greenwich started it.
New Canaan announced a swap shop
Yeah,
last
New
week.
Canaan and another
And we
couple
put
of
that
others.
on our website. We just
Now,
started.
they're spending quite a bit of money to get it started too, as I understand.
Yes, and I believe they got some grants. Obviously, the same sustainability committee, not through efforts of mine, I got to this a little bit later, but with, this is where it connects back to the sustainable CT application. One of the places where our community is about as advanced as you could possibly be is the textiles, paint, mattresses, smoke detectors, tires, mattresses, I already said that, the swap shop, and now the food scrap recycling program. So what that all does is all of those things combined. If our numbers in June were 544 tons of municipal solid waste, that's just what's in the hopper. If you added the mattresses and what we can't really quantify at the swap shop because we don't weigh it, but and the food we weigh, so we're taking 2 tons, 3 tons of food out of the system, and that's the small voluntary program. The town is doing it, but we're not really embracing it as a community at restaurants and stores and in every home and stuff like that. But so yeah, I mean, the swap shop and these other things do make Darien a community that is considered, you know, quite far advanced, and some of these have been looked at by other communities. We just submitted the application, and the strategic materials management, we get a lot of points towards our certification.
Strategic materials
That
management.
is the category under which these things will be described. If I can just broaden out for a minute, so this is, because this gets back to the swap shop, and I did want to close with this. Sustainable CT certifies communities that are doing things that go in 12 different categories. Equitable community, thriving local economies, well-stewarded land and natural resources, efficient energy infrastructure. We work with Ed a lot on that, the strategic management. Materials manager, we work with Ed on that. We've worked with Ally and social services on health and homelessness actions. There are a whole series of activities, and you pick and choose. It's like a menu, and it's like a best practices. And you submit the things your community has done,
Right.
and they read them, and they tell you whether you meet the criteria that Sustainable CT wants. And we submitted for bronze, like a 200-point certification in 2019. We just submitted for silver with 600 points because we have a wealth of different things going on in the community. And the materials management, what y'all work on with this stuff is a big part of that.
I've been meaning to ask this question for quite some time. So let's assume that our submit gets approved for silver, okay, with Westcog. And so that keeps us in good standing with Westcog.
It has nothing to do with Westcott.
It has nothing to do.
It has nothing to do. Sustainable CT is a private, not-for-profit organization that was organized by all the municipalities in the state of Connecticut. It was run out of Eastern. It's now full Connecticut State College. It's separate. It's got its staff. It's got its board of directors. I can share anything you need. It's also all on the website, sustainablect.org. So we are not doing this for
Conference of
Westcott.
Governments.
We are not doing it for, CCM is very involved in this, people are involved. We do this, number one, to document the things we're doing in our community, because y'all don't know what these other people are doing, and I do, because I just saw the 600 points that were submitted. Secondarily, other communities, once you're certified, can look at your ideas, and we can go look at Guilford, or Hartford, or Stonington,
Is there
and
a
see
goal
what they're
that you
doing.
look for?
Pardon me?
Is there a goal town you look for?
If we're trying to see what somebody's doing with clean and diverse transportation systems, we'd look and see where they got points and what they did. Or natural resources management, who's done something with, agricultural growing in houses, whatever it might be is sustainable. So we get to advertise ourselves, we get to put it on our website, we get to look at what other people are doing, and we can ask for grants. We have gotten grants. We have tried for some through Sustainable CT, we didn't get, but the options are there for community match funds. If we want to do something and the town will pay half and we can raise half through Sustainable CT on social media, we can try projects. And there's very broad, there's all kinds of webinars and seminars and grant opportunities, so we participate. And it's been organized through the Sustainable CT application process through Dan and Ed and Carolyn as the chair, Craig Flaherty, myself, and a couple of other people that serve on that committee. So but the overlying thing, and I'm sorry I took way too long, that the overlying all this is what they would call inclusive and equitable community impacts. And they ask you when you're doing something to look at who lives and works in your community. And it looks to provide services and meet the needs of many people in your community. And you have to document activities you've done that way in order to even get certification. If you can't show that in certain ways, you will not be certified. And the first time we did it, we used the swap shop as an option because there were some people who didn't have a dump sticker for whom we were able to work through Ally and social services as people that would benefit from being able to go to the swap shop that didn't have a way to come in. And so we use that as finding a need and solving the need and providing certain people that are identified in the community to have access to something. And again, our committee just doesn't want it to go into solid waste. We kind of don't care who takes it or what they do with it.
Right.
We just don't want it to go in the garbage bins. So the fact that people are coming in, whether they're staff of people in town or whatever, fits perfectly with the kinds of stories that we define. That one wasn't one in this application, but it fits into how you think about yourself as a community. So,
At the end of the day, the swap shop is volunteer-led, volunteer-managed, and the town contributes some space.
yes,
And it net reduces expense to the town by eliminating waste, and 95% plus of the benefit stays within the community.
exactly.
Yes. It's a no-brainer.
Good.
So,
And the rest helps.
Just want to make sure that one's on there.
And I might also add, the part that doesn't, a good part of that goes to charity. So
Right.
my specialty is books. We have too many books, I throw them in the back of my van, bring them to Goodwill. Other people bring them to Book Aid. We have a gentleman who goes and works on the computer who brings the computers, printers and that up to Bridgeport, to a charity up there. So, you know, there's somebody who does an outplacement, so I know he looks for Bibles. I put them in a certain place for him. Stuffed animals, toys that don't go to everybody's grandchildren. This really doesn't just benefit the town in that way. It benefits part of the social goal of this community to help others. And that's an important part of this swap shop as well.
I mean, I think, Rolf, the reason that this is coming up is because I think we've all gotten, I'll speak for myself, I've gotten a fair amount of informal feedback from some constituents saying, and I've gotten this from time to time, saying, hey, there's something, they're expressing concerns about the swap shop, so I think it's a great opportunity for us to talk about it.
Yes.
I 100% agree with you, right, that the only measure of success here is how much we get out of the municipal waste stream. To the extent that we're reducing that, I honestly don't care where it goes. The two biggest concerns that, I don't want it to go up a chimney instead of in the ground, but
When I joined this committee, Craig Flaherty, this was the first thing he said, we really don't care, you know, we do this, we spend our volunteer time to help reduce waste that we're paying for, which is going to be an even bigger problem because the state has no place for any waste, and we are going to have other decisions to make in the future about municipal solid waste and food scraps and other things. So for now, we don't care where it goes.
Right. So I 100% agree. I guess the two things that I hear most frequently is that the volunteers are, quote, front running stuff or taking stuff, all the good stuff. I mean, again, it's cognitive dissonance for me, like, oh, I've got all the good stuff that people are throwing away. but Dan, to your point, if these people are volunteering their time, they're refurbishing stuff, and they are keeping it out of the waste stream, you know, whether they are giving it to charity, giving it to their kids, selling it on eBay, no one's getting rich off this. And I think, again, to the extent that it stays out of the waste stream, perfectly fine. There might be an opportunity here for kind of a code of conduct. You know, like, here's what we expect from volunteers, you know, here's kind of basic rules of the road, because my only concern here is, with this particular issue, is you don't want people to think it's unfair, or to think that it's somehow biased or skewed, or that some people are benefiting, that is perceived to be unfair, because that's going to be a deterrent to usage.
I agree with that, and if somebody feels strongly, I presume you would welcome them as a volunteer so that they could front run.
Absolutely. That's what I tell people. Volunteer. Come on in.
And then
But I don't get volunteers when I say that.
I guess the second concern that I have heard a lot of, and this will be my last, is that to the extent that people are coming in, you know, not parking there, that they're coming in, quote, from out of town. Now, Dan, your information was new to me, and I think very helpful, that in fact most people are actually in town and coming in across the
They
street
have a
for a
relationship with town. There's a definite relationship.
Again, I think as far as if there's either a policy that we as a town, you know, that maybe we need to kind of just codify to say we as a town are open and welcoming, and we invite not only residents but also people who work in town and also people from neighboring communities, if they can find a way to use the stuff that we've got. We invite them to participate.
That's a good idea.
And this is not an exclusive thing where we've got all the good stuff and we don't want anybody from outside town to get it, right?
I think you can stick to the people who live and work in your community that have access to a resource that the town provides by the space.
I'm just saying it could be a great opportunity to codify in a policy that not only do we allow people to park across the street and walk across the street, but we invite that, of course, as long as it's safe to do that.
I would say yes and no, because it does get very busy there. So if you open it up and say,
I'm not saying we're going to advocate.
Come on. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah,
I go a lot, and it's it's quite crowded. It's hard to park there. There are people parked across the street, and I love the swap shop. I think it's a wonderful resource for the town.
And
But
just given the
yeah.
sometimes the perceptions of Darien, I think this is an opportunity for us to kind of plant a flag that's in a more inclusive and open.
yeah, I think the problem with
Wording.
there were several RTM meetings where constituents came in and got up and spoke about their concerns. I think this is where that's coming from, right?
I've got people calling me privately, but
Really? I don't, to be honest, but I did see people at open RTM meetings going up to the mic and expressing safety concerns, and people coming in from across the street concerns, people taking the good stuff concerns. And I think it's just an educational issue. They don't, they obviously didn't listen to the same podcast I listened to.
Well, yes.
I knew the point of it was to reduce waste,
Yeah.
and if that's the main goal, it's serving that main goal, and it doesn't matter who takes what, and if you wanna sit there all day, you can sit there all day and wait till people
I've
bring
said
the
to
good
volunteers, if you do take something, tell the people where it's going, because that's what I do. I say it's going to St. John's, or it's going to, just the other day, there was a piece of furniture that came in that one of the people that sells said, gee, I could use that. I said, sure, I'll give it to you, that's fine, but it's going over to Atria. My wife has a woman who doesn't have much money at all. She's in a prayer group, but if you want it, you can have it. Oh, no, that's fine, Dan.
Right.
Take it, so
Yeah.
it's a learning experience, you have to tell people exactly what's going on. When I get tools, I say it's going to my landscaper who's starting a business.
Oh, that's great.
And thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
So, people appreciate that.
I think there's some element as well of what's the alternative, right? Because part of what the swap shop replaced was the twice a year pickup, right?
Right.
And I've been in town long enough that I experienced that, and there were a lot of people
Didn't like that.
not from the community who would drive around, and it was a little crazy because they were racing each other to get there,
That's
right?
unsafe too, yeah.
Right, that was,
That's
I would
not-
argue, more unsafe than,
Correct.
I think the swap shop is an elegant solution to that.
I think it's lovely.
Yeah, the
I
other thing
have
is
no problems with
we don't want to advertise.
I think the swap shop
talked
needs more
about
space.
people
Yeah.
walking
Ed,
back.
thank you.
Yeah,
Everybody talk to Ed. Ed's gonna be so mad at me. Carolyn didn't come.
No, but Ed and I have talked about people, as you said, walking back and forth. And if it gets too much, we have to really take a look at that.
Totally.
Because
Yeah.
it's gonna get, there could be
Unsafe.
problems with too many people walking back and forth.
100%.
Right now, it's limited, but,
Totally.
if it really starts to get, we have to talk about that.
So that's a concern, that's really a concern about planning for success.
Yeah.
So
Right.
in large part today, the swap shop is a victim of its own success. So you have complaints from residents and people that want to use it that drive right by and go to the hopper because they don't want to deal with the hassle and the congestion. So there's really an opportunity. We're 13 years after this was founded. The awareness of circular economy, of sustainability is much greater. We were able to have the space that we had, and it provided a solution that was 13 years ago. So we're here today, and we see constraints, and we are limiting the amount of solid waste that we could be diverting from the waste stream because the contributor experience is not good. So if we don't improve that, we will decrease the amount of solid waste we're diverting. So there is a
Do you
real
think
problem.
the
Yeah, I have to agree with
contributor
Jeff
experience is
that
not good?
if there's any one issue that I
Yeah.
would bring up is the experience of going to the swap shop. And it's not necessarily always a good experience from numerous aspects. First, getting in and out, that alone is an
Awful.
experience. Okay,
Terrible.
yeah.
That's why we
Sorry.
need more space.
Yeah.
But also, it's when you get there,
Sorry.
when you get there, it's not really clear who's working as a volunteer and who is just there doing whatever, okay? You describe a whole, shall I call it, networking group that is out there.
There's 7 of us.
And they're looking, and they're
I find them to be
grabbing,
lovely
and they're
helpful.
taking, and they're giving to
Yeah.
other people. And in the process of all of that, I have to be honest to say, I think some day-to-day Darien residents are getting eliminated from the process, if you will, because they just don't want to deal with that environment.
So I confess that I have gone to Goodwill because it's so easy to just, it's drive-through, the stuff is right there, because the last few times I did go to the swap shop, I couldn't park, and it just was easier.
Well, I went this week actually on Monday, and I brought, just a couple of things that my wife was saying, take. So when I got there, I pulled up, and I hadn't finished opening the back of my SUV, and there was a person there saying, yeah, I'll take that. Okay, yeah, my truck's right here, I'll put it in my truck.
Was it a volunteer?
I have no idea.
Then, they have the yellow jackets.
Okay. Well, I didn't see anybody with the yellow jacket.
Well, a lot of times you don't.
Okay.
No, a lot of times you don't. As I said, they're not always volunteers there.
Okay.
So I do
then-
think
so
They're
then-
not always volunteers.
Yeah.
Dan, may I comment on that? We have, Carolyn has written up, shown Ed, Dan, maybe a more expansive draft of an agreement with volunteers that would be helpful for volunteers to know what, their responsibilities, whether it's approaching a car or taking something that things should get put down first. I as a user of the swap shop believe that the volunteers need to all have an identifying label on when they're on that property, and some do, some don't, and then it's cold out and it doesn't go over, or they don't like hats, or we have as a committee on public meetings discussed how do we make sure that every volunteer is identifiable as a volunteer. So there's probably work, Dan, that we can do, that we've talked about in
We're
public
gonna get
meetings.
hats. So
And I hear that
everybody-
feedback again.
Everybody,
We'll
because
take
in the
care of it.
summertime, it's very hot to have those.
But it is not fair
So
to
we're gonna
not
be putting,
have
we're gonna be getting hats
an
on.
identification
Yeah.
Okay,
on.
that solves the problem for the volunteers. What about the non-volunteers?
Well, let's
They're
talk,
not
yeah,
gonna
let's,
sign it. They're
let's
not
talk
gonna
about
sign
that.
it.
There
They're not
are
gonna
people,
sign agreement or
there
whatever.
are non-volunteers that go to, I'm not a cop. I am not gonna go and tell people, we'll say, look, you're not supposed to do that, but they still do it.
Right.
But I am not gonna go and be a cop and say you can't do it, as Ed knows, because some people call Ed and say, I'm gonna do it. I'm just gonna go to the cars.
Right.
So, if somebody else wants to
Well,
stop it, that's fine, but
I do
I'm
think,
not.
yeah, but I do think if someone is just, shall I say, loitering around, waiting for the next car to pull in, I think that kind of behavior, someone should call it out and say, hey, listen, you're not here, this facility doesn't exist for you to hover around and grab
Well, I
things
can,
from
what I
people
can do,
when
I
they
can
pull in
take
the
their
parking
license
lot.
plate and send it on up and let you deal with it. We can do that. I've requested that. But I am not going to be a cop.
But Dan,
I think
all of us
what-
are
Well,
supportive.
if that's the
something
policy,
that-
if that's the policy,
That's a policy
then
that, because I think it's above my pay level to
Yeah.
go and ask
I
somebody to
totally
All
not
right.
do things.
But if that is the policy, then I have to go back to what Jeff just said. Then you're, if I may coin a phrase, shooting yourself in the foot. Because you're alienating people from coming into the facility. You're losing whatever they were going to bring as being cycled the way we hoped it to be. And that.
No, what I'm saying
is a
is, if you
self-defeating.
do want that to stop, and the people doing it, I'll give you the license plate and number and we can all deal with it.
So again, I think the first place is to say we would need some kind of policy, right? Which would include a code of conduct for volunteers and a code of conduct for users. And so that we at least clarify what the expectations are for volunteer behavior and for user behavior.
Yeah,
So then when people violate that, if a volunteer's inappropriately doing something, and I'm not suggesting behaving in a way that's not consistent with the policy, you can say you've warned them, right? And if a user is behaving inappropriately, you can warn them. And if there's consequences for that, that will be spelled out in the policy, right? And I can't imagine you're going to ban someone from the swap shop or how you would enforce that. But again, the idea being that at least you put in a document. At least you put in a document. Here's what the expectations are, and here's how we're all going to work together as a community. And I think there would be benefit from kind of having that.
So Frank, I've listened to what folks have said.
Go ahead, Ed.
I'm limited on space.
Sorry,
It is so difficult for I'm gonna say for me to sit up in my office and I get a complaint. And it's not specific. And it's to someone came up to the car and did what you just described. Who was it? It was, but he's there sometimes, he's there. So we end up dealing with residents, right? Because they have to be residents to get in there. I can't ban them from the transfer station. I can't ban them from the swap shop. All we can do is ask them politely, and I know Dan has, and I know I have, to please let the people get the stuff out and put it on the table first before you go. And there are some people that no longer come to the swap shop anymore, that were volunteers. They were no longer asked to be volunteers anymore. And when they started to come and they weren't behaving correctly, they kind of disappeared. And after a while, they do seem to get the message that their conduct isn't going to be tolerated, and they don't come back anymore. But we're going to have some residents that feel that, you know, they can come up to your car and you know, ask politely, can I put this in my car? I'm going to put this in my car.
All I'm saying is if you have a written policy.
But you're asking me to have a policy that I can't enforce.
That's
my
I like the idea.
We have
give me some
been,
teeth
he and I have been discussing this for the longest time.
Yeah, I have
And
no
I
doubt.
said, I'll send a name up, I can't enforce it.
Is the,
Yeah.
so, I feel like we're jumping on the word policy, because if you have a policy, you enforce the policy, as opposed to just saying guidelines and expectations for behavior.
Yeah,
It's
I
a code of
think,
conduct. This is how it's supposed to work.
Yeah,
I think there's some work.
I don't see any harm in putting something up that says, you know,
Not an easy sign.
I would
Can I
take
just
it,
add something here from somebody who volunteers? All right, I'm an unofficial volunteer because I can't commit to the time that the volunteers are really there. And at the end of the day, when we have to clean things up and get it into the tractors, I'm telling you, a lot of people disappear.
Thanks, Jack.
I'll say something else. I understand that it's really nice to say, here's what Lake Wobegon's supposed to be. But this isn't Lake Wobegon. And over the times that I've been here, from when Caroline, and talking to Caroline when she was first starting out, and Dot and that, there has been significant turnover of the volunteers. And exactly what Ed and Dan have said, when people are rude to other volunteers, or rude to residents, are inappropriate in what they're doing, unofficially they're asked to leave. And I'm sure it's official, but you know, these two gentlemen have a great deal of sensibilities in how they deal with that. Look, there are always going to be someone who wants to complain. And we have limited space. We have some people who do a lot of work, a lot of times, and I can say Tony is one of them. He'll go to the car right from the beginning, and typically what he's doing is helping somebody take it out and going. We have signs where things are supposed to be. I won't tell you how many times that people can't even read that this shelf is for cookbooks. I mean, it's not a difficult concept. Or that they're just dumping, and there's been days that I go in there and they're waiting for me because there's 20 boxes of books sitting there on the floor. So and you know, look, I think that for the most part we try and do it. These people aren't really rewarded with anything other than they're there and they help out. It's not that we're giving them an extra, many of them seniors, we're not giving them an extra dump pass, you know, which is $120, $40 for their second one. We're not even doing that for many of them. So I appreciate that we should have some guidelines in it, and I know that Ed and Dan talk to people, but once we start formalizing this, one of the things that I understand that Canaan was having problems with is getting the volunteers.
Exactly.
We do not want to chase our volunteers away because
Believe me,
then
people,
we
he's
have
absolutely
killed
right.
those
Yeah.
that
It's
they-
very difficult to get people.
so the people
I'm
that,
sorry for interrupting.
the people
but
that
that's my
are, if I
advice.
may say, dealing, okay, do they do any volunteer work, or are they
No,
just there?
no,
So
no,
they're
they-
there to,
They're there,
they're looking.
they're there, yes.
Okay.
And I don't mind, if there's nobody around or it's not busy, I want them there. Look at what they're taking.
taking
Nobody
stuff.
will put it in their living room, I don't think, right?
yeah.
You saw what you just saw here. And they take it and they really, you know, fix it up. So they can stay there all day get rid of stuff.
I've got a couple suggestions that of what I'm hearing everybody saying here. And Jackie brought up a good point. When you go to Goodwill, there's somebody that comes and takes it out of your car. Perhaps to ease up the flow, I can't tell you how many times I've had a few little things, Rolf, like you were just saying, in the back of my car, and because the parking lot is too full, I just drive right past. Now, maybe there would be a nice little thing, so right to the right of when you're pulling in, there maybe somebody stands there with one of those little push carts that they have and just unloads the stuff very quickly so you can move along
Yes.
very quickly.
Well, see, that's what we.
That would alleviate parking.
That's what we do. When we see a car that comes in that's full and the parking lot is pretty full,
Yeah.
we take the carriages out and
Yeah.
start pulling it out.
But maybe
And
if
brings
Ed,
it to probably
if
Drop
Ed
off.
could just actually make a drop-off lane to,
I hear what you're saying.
I'm
No,
not,
I know what you're saying.
I'm
trying to envision.
not asking for like a lot of extra room, I'm asking for one lane that a drop-off lane, like you would
It would be
go,
kind of a loop, drop off.
like a
and
loop.
out.
like a loop
We-
and go.
It would avoid.
We were thinking about that, but we
randos.
just don't have any room for it, right? And
Well,
we thought about
maybe
that.
Ed could just take a look at it, that's just one
Yeah.
of my
It's a
suggestions.
really good idea.
And again, I'm not asking for a ton of room, but it would make it really nice, and most people can just push a button or whatever, or their
Right.
car, you can put the trunk out, and you could be in and out of there in 2 minutes like you are at Goodwill. The second thing that I'm thinking of is for the people, the other complaints that I've heard, and Patrick sent me his list of things, are the people that are crossing the busy street that the lady from the RTM keeps bringing up all the time, is it a possibility of making a crosswalk? Now, not that people in Darien follow the rules of the road.
I was just gonna say that.
Because as a walker, I can assure you they don't. But maybe just a little, maybe you should let the person go on the crosswalk. I don't know if that's possible because that's
Do we have to go to the
who wants to know
traffic
or
authority
whatever,
for that?
but maybe just a little crosswalk.
I'd have to do a little bit more than that, yeah. I would need to put something on the far side that resembles a landing area for people crossing the road.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
Got it.
More expressive.
It's just a suggestion to alleviate the
What about one of those
complaints
signs
that
that's
I'm
like
getting as well.
turtle crossing? It could
Yeah.
just be like a people crossing sign. Just a sign. Slow down.
That's-
warning.
But again, they don't follow that.
That's not a bad idea,
I
something
can't
that's a
tell
little
you
bit
We
how
more.
many
could
times
pretend
I
we're
wasn't
turtles.
there.
I know.
But I'd like to go back to,
Then the kids
if I could go back to
Yes.
Frank's statement, I
Yeah.
agree, we do need something that says, hey, our expectations are. My problem is, I have my expectations, I didn't think I needed to put them on a list. But, exactly, and I feel this whole room is filled with people that my expectation would be to show up, do what I needed to do, not interfere with other people's businesses, and go on my way. But I think that we need to, signs are what they are, right? You just said, we do have signs on the side of the building, please don't stay more than 20 minutes if it's busy, you know, things like that. And somebody's conduct, if making that sign and modifying to say, our expectations are that you come here and, you know, you do the right thing and you act appropriately, I guess is the way to put it, I don't think that's a bad idea.
So,
And
can
it
I-
may not necessarily need to be a sign, it might be on the
Yeah.
website.
I also.
So before you
No,
come
no,
to the
no,
swap
I
shop.
think it has to be on site.
If I could point to it at the building when there's
Neon sign.
Let me
So-
rephrase, it shouldn't only be on the sign.
In addition to that, maybe when people mail their dump passes,
Yes.
there's a
Yeah.
slip that says this is the expectation at the swap shop.
Yeah, we send,
And also, sorry,
I'm sorry.
and also maybe something in the paper, you know, someone could write an article and say, these are the expectations, or a letter to the editor, or something like that, that it's a PR issue now to get this.
I was
message
gonna
out
say the thing that it jumped to my mind beyond what signage or a whiteboard that says, you know, we're all the community, or did you know, whatever, thank you for coming, and whatever is done at the swap shop on signs or whiteboards that move in and out. The town did invest in and hire a communications manager that I was fortunate to work with on the sustainable CT application, because actually the establishment of that position and her role is also considered a best practice.
Oh, boy.
So I'm learning it. So I learned a lot from her and what she's done to understand the communication vehicles in the town and work not only internally at town hall, but with the media and with the million commissions and committees and that all have information. So I would think it might take her a little while, so it may not be a priority, but she's another person that could probably help assist with, she does a lot of the Slow Down in Town campaign went out through her and things like that. So there may be a person who could assist our committee with getting that message out.
I would
Yeah,
wonder
that's
if
a
your
good idea.
committee,
Okay.
if like the podcast, the article that
Yeah, maybe another
and all that.
podcast would,
get that placed in the.
We've been writing articles in the magazine that only went to half of Darien, that I guess now is coming out to the whole of Darien, that I've written for, Carolyn wrote for.
Right.
And so we can look into those things, certainly the paper, and that's what this new person's communications job is supposed to do. Our committee does as much of that. Again, we're all volunteers too, I mean,
Yeah.
we're dealing with the energy and swap shop and dump and food scraps and green things and on and on and on. So, but I'm hearing a few things that I think Carolyn and I and the group could work on to get some
I
communication
like the
out.
permit idea.
That wouldn't take a lot of time or huge amounts of manpower.
You have a captured audience.
Just as a little reference, if we're talking about Molly, she's a former RTM member as well.
Nice.
Ed, the closed drop-off bins that are right next to the hut, are they utilized? Do we get people really dropping clothes
$200 a
there?
ton, yeah.
Yes,
They use
and
that.
we also have a book area that we put books in after, they've been there a while on the shelf, we put that there and someone comes in and takes them.
Nice.
There's a lot going on in that little space, and I understand that.
Yeah,
But adjacent to all that, there's a lot of heavy construction
Equipment.
movement and equipment. And I'll tell you, if you've been there on Saturday, and
Yeah.
Dan knows, I kind of sneak over there on the weekends or something, now it's gonna be out there.
And you do a little
I dress
shopping.
differently.
He parks his car across the street.
He parks across the street.
And for some
He'll get your hat.
And for some reason, if Dan sees me, he comes over and puts his arm on me, I think it's a signal. But I do try to go over there. I do take it personally about experiences on my property, on the swap shop. I know Dan and the group does too, the advisory committee. I know they do, because we talk about it. We don't like to hear that someone went there and had a bad experience, because that's not what it's about. I work here in Darien now for over 8 years. Probably the one community I can say that has volunteerism nailed down pretty good. And I want the people that come here to experience that.
So,
I've got one other thing for the volunteers. When I volunteered for the Red Cross, with the Red Cross at Hurricane Katrina, we were all given these vest things that had little pockets and stuff, and you could wear it in hot and cold weather. You could put it over your clothes. You could put it over a coat. It was quite warm, roomy. It wasn't attractive or anything like that, but you're there to volunteer, you're not there to look good. So it's just an option if people don't like wearing hats. They say that like on a hot day, it's not that cumbersome, but it's just
Yeah,
this
sure.
little vest that you tie. You can get one size fits all, ties over here, has little pockets, and you can maybe even have them say Darien Swap Shop. That way people know that you work there, just a
Yeah,
suggestion.
no, the volunteers do want hats,
Yeah.
so you can wear a hat year round.
Yeah.
So we're
Yeah.
waiting for the hats, we've asked for hats.
yeah,
So
some
it says
sort of
volunteer.
identification, I think.
It would
is-
be great.
You know,
is
and
very
that's,
important.
everybody, they can't say it's too hot or too cold or whatever, you have the hat on, and everybody should wear the hat.
A nice bright yellow color so you can see it. from-
See them coming far away.
All right. And from the cameras on the DPW garage.
Nice.
So, it's,
Well, I think you guys do a great job. My mom, whenever she comes from Michigan, she just likes to go and visit. And she doesn't really ever take anything. She just gets rid of all of my brothers and my stuff. But we might go to the swap shop. Like she's there for a week. We go there like 5 times.
you should see the U-Haul she drives.
I think it's great. You guys do such a great service for. And my mom's made us recycle since the 70s, and with newspapers and all that other stuff, and before there were deposits on things. So she is just so into this. So you guys do a great job. Don't stop. I mean, it's fabulous. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Yeah,
Thank you for your volunteerism.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well,
And-
thank you all for inviting us, because we have to get the, what we do out. It's
Absolutely.
public relations for us. So the more we do this, the better off it is for the town and everyone understanding, and we get good ideas also. So if you have any ideas, you can call me. If you hear any problems, give me a call. Ed calls me constantly. Dan, right?
I think if there were something in the paper, and you guys need volunteers, it should definitely say who to contact if people are interested in volunteering, because
Yeah,
probably a lot of
exactly.
people just don't know.
Yeah, anyone wants to volunteer, just call me.
Yeah.
That's, because we could always use someone, in the off hours and.
Patrick suggested one thing, that the dealers that you've got there may be a requirement for going, and knowing that they're dealing is that they have to give back some volunteer hours.
Oh,
It's an
Just
interesting
a
idea.
little incentive, and that's what Patrick just texted.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
Yeah,
Okay, so if you know somebody's a known dealer that's there, that they are grabbing the stuff and taking it, that part of their, for being there and you not saying anything to them, is that they have to give back volunteer hours to you.
I'll talk to you afterward. It could be a problem.
That's not me though, that is.
it's an interesting idea though, you want
I
to
got a
take,
text
then,
message.
give a little something.
I'll tell you why later.
Okay.
Ed knows what I'm talking about, right?
That
What?
came from Patrick, so it's not me.
Yeah.
Jeff
Yeah.
sees it too, you're just ignoring your
Not
phone
that-
right now. Patrick's got like a thing like this.
Give it-
Well,
give
you already heard it. Are you reading some of his too?
Oh, yeah. Trying to bring them up
Somebody else
some.
that writes
I
emails.
know, right?
So,
You're doing a good job.
Is there any comment cards that people could leave there as far as, to give feedback? I
How
mean,
was
sure-
your experience today?
Well, right, I'm sure some of it's would be what we're talking about here, but
I am not hard to get a hold of, so basically my email is a comment section and sometimes I get letters too.
I'm sure you do.
awesome.
I get letters,
Lucky.
they're not signed or anything, but I do take them as, as fact, at face value, but, I get the comments. But,
All right,
A quick
if there's,
question.
is there one more question, because
Wondering
time is moving.
What proportion of donated stuff at the swap shop ultimately ends up being thrown in the trash anyway?
That's a good question.
It's hard to gauge too.
What do you think, Ed? About 20%, 25%?
I can say a third of it.
Yeah.
There it goes.
25,
You can't get it out the
25,
door.
30%.
So there's a problem on the other end as well.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's not just
Oh,
the
yeah.
contributor experience, it's the getting rid of
Oh,
this
yeah, yeah.
reusable
Yeah,
stuff.
if-
because
if you take a look
presumably
at
if
it,
it was given,
and-
it's reusable.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
And Jack, what do you think? It's about 30%? Because Jack has been there.
I would say 30%, but that's part of the thing, and I know everybody's schedule is a little tough and everything, especially when kids are around, you have sports. But coming when they closing and you have good stuff just makes everyone's life crazy, because we gotta figure out, especially on a weekend, how we're stacking it in limited space. It's like back being in our New York City apartment that you done understood how you ever got all that stuff in. And so the sooner you get there, the more eyes are gonna see it. And the more eyes that see it, the quicker it has an opportunity to go.
I feel like that is a great message, because
Yeah.
that has never occurred to me.
Me
I'm like, I can get there by
I know.
2:45 or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, so,
And I think if we had a drop-off line, to your point, if there was a drop-off line, it could be open just like the first 2 hours. So you had to drop off in the beginning of the day, and then
I like that. We've talked about that.
Back to that drop-off line, I'm telling you, it makes so much sense.
Yes.
no, that's amazing.
Or what about,
So-
or what about, there's, by a certain time, that will be the last drop.
Mhm.
Okay, let's say your hours are till noon, but your last drop off would be 11.
11.
We'll take,
We
if
can do that all, we
there's
can,
somebody who comes
what do you
in
think,
at
Ed?
12,
Yeah.
we're gonna take somebody in and we're gonna store it away, because that's what we're here to
That's
do.
what we're here for.
so,
Make room.
but.
yeah, when people come, even at the end, we have to take it. I
Yeah.
mean, they drive in, we're closed, and people, drive up and say, okay, we'll take it.
So
You know,
when
what do you say
ultimately-
with-
It's gonna go dump in the, like,
When
what's
does
Yeah,
the
what do you
goal?
say with
Keep-
someone
reduce
who,
the waste, right?
is
Right.
late or is 5 after or whatever, we take it.
So when does it ultimately go in the bin? At the end of the week?
No.
Or
No, every night.
So is that an opportunity?
Every night.
Is that an
Daily-
opportunity
daily
to have a
operation.
contract with
Says
some
daily
organization that they come in
30%
at
every
5
night.
o'clock and they
It's
pick
labor
up whatever
intensive,
is,
for sure. I've seen it at.
whatever is there and they pay by the pound.
I think Dan has reached out to certain organizations
Mhm.
to do just that,
Yes.
but they come during the day, when they're open. And at 5 o'clock, they're not.
Yeah,
So,
they're-
but we do try to, we contact any of them, they wanna come in, I don't discourage that, as a matter of fact, if
yeah.
you
No,
put
we-
it correctly,
Yeah, I call
we're
people.
here to get rid of the
call
waste.
Yeah.
That's right.
So we're here to do, that's how
And
it
we-
got started.
we have
How do we make
contact-
that work within the context of what our expectations are?
We have contacted, whether it's Habitat for Humanity, Restore, some of those places that do have trucks. And they're often, again, the timing when they might be able to come to us,
Yeah.
when we're open and when we close, so there's that logistics. We've worked with someone who will pick up books, we've got the fabric so that we can recycle the fabric. The bigger, heavier furniture at some point, where do we put it? And we would love to have someone take it away. I just got a card in my mail at home, an organization I'm gonna look at, because you can schedule. So maybe that day, if we know they'll pick up, we could schedule them to come to us. So, I think we're
We also-
always open to organizations that
Kathy,
would
we
take
also
it.
thought about putting out some notices to the residents of Darien that, hey, if you've got bigger stuff, there's some places you can call and contact.
That is
We're
all,
trying to get that letter
that is, I
together.
think, also on the website
Yeah.
too. There is a list of other places you can take your things that are, if we can,
Yeah,
and
we-
phone numbers and
yeah,
contacts.
30% every day. See,
Yeah.
it's not 2 days. Every day, we have to get rid of at least 30%. So that's, the key is, we're just trying to get rid of it.
Absolutely.
Now,
If
some
people
of
ask
it
me-
is really garbage. I mean, I do
No, I
have
know.
to admit
Yeah.
that some of that 30%, I don't care
Broken
how
stuff.
much patience you have to restore, it's still garbage.
All right. If there are no further questions, I don't want to keep these people, particularly Ed, he's
Yeah.
already had a full work day,
Yeah.
so I'd like to let them go. So if there aren't any other questions, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Come and say hello to us. Now I know all your faces.
So now I can't be as bad.
I think somebody you kind
Have you never heard of it?
Never had.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Wait till I tell you.
Please tell us a little, move it.
Yeah. Thanks, Ed.
Oh,
Okay.
we got a good house.
All right.
Oh, wait till I tell him. No, he told me.
Well, I said, oh,
of. That was just mind blowing when it happened.
I read your code, it's still in the back.
Thank you.
There we go.
All right, just quickly,
Thank you.
I did put some information together as a chairman's report. If I can bring it up. One of the things I think most people are aware of, but I just want to mention it, that the town is under a drought alert, phase 2, with a restricted schedule for watering the lawn. So I just mentioned that again. There's a whole schedule, odd numbered address on certain days, even numbered address on other days. But it's basically 2 days a week. I do want to clarify though that if you have a drip irrigation type system, that is not subject to any restrictions. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing about water is the Aquarian Water Company, which is owned by Eversource, has applied for a 20-some-odd% increase in water rates over a 3-year period. Okay? So if you are going to water, understand that it's very possible that in the not-too-distant future you're going to pay a lot more for it than what you pay today. The Attorney General for the state of Connecticut is reviewing the application. I would encourage anybody who is interested to consider possibly sending something into the Attorney General, one way or another, about how you might feel about a increase in the cost of your water. 27% over 3 years. Okay. So I just passed that along. Sewers. The Sewer Commission will be meeting September 6th, 4:30 p.m., Town Hall, room 206, to review the sewer rate. We don't pay a rate if you have a sewer for that water to be processed. They are entertaining a just hair under 3% increase. If you have any interest to express yourself about that, that meeting is on September 6th at 4:30. Planning and Zoning Commission is conducting a public hearing September 6th, 7:30 p.m., room 206, to discuss accessory dwelling units for the town. The state has a plan, and each town has the option of opting out of the state plan, but if you're going to do that, you have to come up with your own plan. And I think at this point, the Planning and Zoning Commission is leaning towards the latter, rejecting the state plan and adopting its own plan. This hearing is dedicated to that idea, so if you have any thoughts about accessory dwelling units, that's an opportunity to express yourself. My own interest, per se, from a Public Works perspective, is, does that add anything to the demand for sewer facilities, electricity, water? These are all utilities that would be affected by increased population into the town, which is already going to be quite significant with all the development that's going on Heights Road and soon on Post Road, or is starting on Post Road. Transfer station fees, I should have brought this up while Ed was here. Board of Selectmen will receive public comment Monday, September 12th at 7 p.m., room 206, regarding the proposal to increase municipal solid waste disposal and resident dump permit fees set by the Board of Selectmen. All members of the public are invited to be present and will be given an opportunity to be heard. So there's a possibility of that possibly going up for your access to the transfer station. And that would apply regardless whether you have a cartage service or not. Okay, they're considering both. Great Island, you may have heard in the news that the due diligence period has been extended roughly 6 months. Okay, a significant delay. To take necessary steps to address outstanding issues to complete the purchase, town officials, staff, and consultants are conducting due diligence for documents, land records, and easements, as well as environmental issues. That's all the information I can give you because that's all the information I have. But 6 months kind of speaks for itself. The town looks forward to finalizing the work and closing the transaction as soon as possible. But of course, we don't know specifically when that would be. Bonding resolution approval may again be required of the RTM due to the extension of the due diligence period. If you recall, we voted on the bonding when the acquisition was voted on, and that may have to be revisited because of the delay. Okay, so that's coming to your local RTM meeting soon. Okay, and that is the chairman's report. Any questions?
Thank you, Ralph.
You're welcome.
Very detailed. I like it. You caught me up.
Okay, moving on. Meeting minutes for the meetings of June 15th and then June 22nd. I sent them out recently. I'm sure you've all read them from top to bottom.
Committed to memory.
So, committed to memory, very good.
Nice.
Okay, go ahead, start.
So, does anybody have any, on the June 15th minutes, any comments, questions, corrections, addendums, whatever? No? Okay, so can I have a vote to approve the minutes for the June 15th meeting? All approved, say aye, raise your hand. Very good. It's approved. Okay, special meeting of June 24th, 22nd. Same question. Any comments, adjustments, corrections? No? Can I have a vote, a motion to vote on the meeting's minutes? Okay, all approved? Aye. Approved. It's a little loosey-goosey, but I think it'll suffice, okay? Are there any other questions about tonight's meeting or anything in general? We have, the Rules Committee is meeting next week, the 6th. So I raised a question with regards to a project that they were supposed to start at the beginning of this year to review and update the descriptions of each of the committees of the RTM. And as you recall, that was like tabled. However, I raised the question again because we're going to have an election, and then we're going to have the start of a new session. And of course, the first meeting of the new session is that everybody submits a form to express what committee they would prefer to have first, second, third, fourth. And I think updated descriptions of those committees might be an appropriate thing for all RTM members to have. So they did put that on the agenda for the meeting this coming Tuesday, the 6th, to discuss trying to pull that together in time for after the election when we have our first meeting of that new session for the year of 2023. So we'll see what comes from that. Anybody else have any other comments?
Point of clarification.
Point of clarification.
If the deadline for Great Island has been extended to as much as 6 months,
Yes.
I assume that we made our $1 million deposit payment back in August. Can you confirm that?
I do not know.
Okay, and I assume therefore that our closing of the other 100 million or so would be contingent on
the due diligence.
successful due diligence.
Yeah. You know, I assume, I mean, the only thing I know is that the $1 million is refundable if we do not go through with the purchase. And that's the only thing I can say to you in that regard.
Do you know, so we requested a 6-month extension, do we know if the other side agreed?
Yes, no, this was a meeting with the Stein-Krause family.
Okay.
Okay. And from that meeting, they all agreed to extend the due diligence period.
Got it.
Yeah, this wasn't.
So it was a mutual
this wasn't-
agreement.
Yeah, it was not a unilateral move on either party's
Got
part. It was a mutually agreed extension. It was a good question.
Any update on how the sale of the other properties going?
I have no idea about that.
Certainly touch that
I have
third rail.
I have a suspicion, though, that threw a monkey wrench into what was going on with the due diligence and might be associated with the delay that we are experiencing right now. The details I do not know, but I suspect it's related. Okay, if there are no other questions, thank you all first for coming this evening. I really appreciate your turnout. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Okay, Paige, second. Waddy, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you, TV 79.
Thank you. Thank you.